It's so easy to be average. You know it as well as I know it. It takes a little something to be special, Don. It takes a little something special to be a great player. We don't have enough great players. To hell with that! We don't want to coach average. I don't want to be around you. Why be around average?
Proud of our young people in the classroom, in the community, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
Three things. Number one, the team that hits the hardest and the longest, the team that starts the fastest, and the team is too damn smart to make mistakes.
If you take it to them, if you don't make mistakes, and you keep taking it to them, hell, there's no question who will win.
It's time for the best Buckeye podcast. By fans, for the fans, where they hate that team up north as much as you do. It's time for the OHIO podcast.
OHIO! Welcome back. Welcome in, everybody. You're watching the OHIO podcast. I am your host, Buckeye Boggs. That guy over there is the wild man himself, Chris Watts. Chris, nice hat.
Oh, thank you. I got to say, I love your hat, and you know your hoodie's pretty sharp there too.
Yeah, nice hoodie.
I'm telling you, Eric, people are going to start talking. We did not coordinate this. We have not talked all day. This was just like a freak thing.
You know, great minds think alike, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Our buddy Ryan, every week, right off the bat. What up, guys?
First one in.
First one in, Ryan. You every week, buddy. We love it, man. Hey, we have got some good news.
Yeah.
First off, happy birthday to Ryan Day. 42 years young, Chris. He actually was born the same year I was.
I don't want to talk about it.
Hey, 1981 was a good year, my man. It was a good year. So
yeah, and I'm actually old enough to remember it.
Oh, the music was better, the cars were faster, all those good things, right?
Yeah, hey, football players could still hit.
Yeah, there was no such thing as targeting back then. Yeah, they could decapitate one another. A lot of fun. So anyways, hey, we've got a lot of new people joining our YouTube page, Chris, and we want to send a thank you to all of you who have subscribed to YouTube. It is growing very quickly. And we're super excited that a lot of you are enjoying the content that we're putting out on a weekly basis. Of course, if you're watching this live, thank you so much. We've got quite a few in already. And feel free to participate in tonight's discussion. Put your comments, questions, whatever you like down in the discussion, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. If you're not watching on YouTube or our business page on Facebook, please put your name in so we know who you are when you make that comment as well. We have a big time guest tonight at the 8:30 part of this podcast. James Cotton will be in. James was the very first Buckeye I interviewed on the OHIO podcast 3 years ago. And he is going to be back tonight. So we appreciate him coming on tonight. Paul Quinn is in from Zanesville. Hi, Paul. Welcome in. OHIO. Thank you so much. Go Bucks, Paul. Anyways, we are looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to this, Chris. Let's dive right in to tonight's discussion. Spring practice got underway this week. And there was for only 2 practices, there was a ton of news that came out this week, Chris. I can't tell you the last time that a spring started where I felt like the news was coming out this fast and this furious. And I want to start right here with this. Jim Knowles had the following statement about one Captain Jack Sawyer. He said, Jack Sawyer will be just an end with JT Tuimoloau. He will work on all the fundamentals of being an end. I think that is important for Jack. I feel like he didn't have the improvement or the big jump he could have last year because he got involved with the Jack position stuff, and maybe he wasn't as focused as he could have been to make those improvements at the end. Chris, that was a big comment from the defensive coordinator about probably a bad decision that was made about one of the best recruits that we've had from Central Ohio in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, um, yeah, I like Knowles coming out and kind of taking responsibility for it too. Saying, "Hey, this is what I thought was going to be a great idea. Maybe it didn't work out the way I thought it would. You know what? We're going to refocus this guy. We're going to put this guy on the end, and we're going to have those bookend guys that we thought, we were getting when we landed both these guys in that class. I think that's going to be tremendous for Ohio State. I think it's going to be kind of scary for a few quarterbacks through the league. When he gets into the groove there, just playing that defensive end position. Um, I also think it was, it just in general, I do think that maybe we expected more out of Jack Sawyer, much like Knowles mentioned, that didn't necessarily come along. And I think that this is going to open up, some space for maybe uh, either a CJ Hicks or possibly a guy returning from injury like a Mitchell Melton who could slide in there and make an impact.
Absolutely. And you're not the only one who feels this way. Brad Olberding, welcome to the show, Brad. Welcome back. He says, that's great news. I agree. And you mentioned that might make room for this guy. And Ryan Wickerham says, watch out for CJ Hicks. So he's thinking in the same lines that you are, Chris, that this move is possibly going to open up for someone else to slide into that jack position and make an impact that wasn't making an impact before, and possibly creating a spot on the field for somebody. It was disappointing. Now, I say it was disappointing, but yet, do you know who led the team in sacks last year? At 4.5.
Jack.
It was Jack.
Yeah.
In limited playing time from a position he wasn't comfortable playing, and he still led the team in sacks. Now, everybody knows about JT Tuimoloau and the game he had against Penn State.
Sure.
There's going to be a lot of attention be placed on him.
Yes.
Do you think that this move not only helps JT, but possibly with JT's popularity, Jack can slide in there as kind of being thought of as the number 2 on the other side and have a bigger impact than what JT might have statistically because of JT?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Eric, I almost would go as far as saying, look out for whoever they do put in that jack position. Let's look back at, the other side of the ball, but let's look when we had Olave and Wilson. What happened when we had Olave and Wilson? Those two guys didn't lead the team in receiving. It was
No.
JSN who snuck in
Mhm.
there because all the attention was being paid to those guys. You're going to have the very same effect. So not only do I think it's going to benefit both those guys, but I think it's going to benefit either CJ Hicks or like I said, a Mitchell Melton or whoever gets that jack position, because there's going to be so much attention you're going to have to pay there. Not only that, but we got a couple of monsters on the defensive tackle.
Yes, we do.
I'll tell you what, this is the year I truly think we are going to see a much more aggressive Ohio State defense.
Mhm.
And I think this move is just one of those that's going to help create that.
Yeah, you mentioned the jack position with possibly being CJ Hicks or Mitchell Melton. Here's what Jim Knowles had to say about Mitchell Melton. He said, we started experimenting with him, being Mitchell Melton, in the jack position last year, and he jumped out. Of course, he got injured then, Chris, after that. I
Right.
want to see him back there, recovered and completely healthy. Jim Knowles basically said, Chris, I want to see him in that spot.
Yeah.
Like he's got a plan for him. And that could possibly lead to some really good things at that position. And the other thing that came out in that press conference, Chris, was he said we only played the jack position maybe around 30% of the snaps,
Right.
and he played it upwards of 80% when he was at Oklahoma State. What do you think about that?
Well, and that begs the question: are we going to see it more, or do we maybe see more? And I've heard this mentioned, the possibility of playing more traditional 4-3 at times. Because we have such a talented linebacking crew. You've got to find a way to get not only Melton, but you've got to find a way to get CJ Hicks snaps. The kid is too talented not to get him the snaps. And obviously, you're not going to go around. Cody Simon, another guy, very
Mm-hmm.
talented, needs to get his snaps. And you're not going to take a whole ton of snaps away from Steele or from Tommy Two Thumbs, because look at what they've done when they're in there. So I think that this is going to be a tremendous opportunity. I think it's going to improve the depth of the defense as well. Even though we're not necessarily adding a bunch of players, but being able to move guys around and create some depth that way as well. I am very excited for this. But I'll tell you something else that makes me, I mentioned the more aggressive defense. I don't know if you've heard about it as much, but Tim Walton's really pushing the defensive backs to become more aggressive as well. I've heard that he has got them, checking receivers more at the line. So we're going to start seeing more of that physical bump and run type corner versus the 5 yard, 10 yard cushion, keep everything in front of you type guy that we've seen in the past.
Well, if that's the case, then we better make sure that we have a safety over top.
No
Um,
more zero safety.
Yeah, you can't play zero safety if you're going to play that close to the line of scrimmage with your cornerbacks, which means they must feel pretty comfortable with someone that who they've got back there as being kind of the eraser in case something bad happens there.
Lorenzo Styles.
You think so? I think he's
I'm,
going to be. I do not think
that
he's
kid's,
back there in the free. I think he's more of a strong.
he is definitely more of a strong, I think, by nature. Um, but you know what? I think they've got the confidence in Lathan. I think that we've got, of course, the transfer kid that came in from Syracuse, who I think is, you know, he showed himself to be a beast up there at Syracuse. Now, does it translate to the Big Ten level? We're going to find out. But I think that this may be one of the most talented defenses we've seen in a while, and I think
Oh,
that
I
they're going to
agree.
become much more aggressive because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it now for a while that the success of the season is going to hinge, in my opinion, on the improvement of the defense on the year 2 under Jim Knowles. Speaking of that defense and speaking about those defensive backs, Ryan Day said this about Denzel Burke. Denzel has had a really good 8 weeks and had a really good first day today. I think that's been great. So we've been hearing buzz about Denzel Burke returning to his freshman All-American form from 2021. He had somewhat of a sophomore slump in 2022 that has been well documented. He was oft injured, but he still played. He tried a number change that did nothing. Hopefully he's getting coached up a little bit, and I think maybe some of that confidence will come with maybe some aggression, more aggressive play.
Yeah, and Eric, I'll tell you, you mentioned it, but oft injured. We saw so much of that last year. I think that this Ohio State team last year, and again, we speculated about it, the physical nature of the practices may have been somewhat different than what they were used to. Um, and I think a lot of guys got banged up, and I think that contributes a lot. I mean, obviously the injury situation with Travion's been well documented. Supposedly we've got everything ironed out. Everybody's happy. We've all hugged it out, and we're ready to move forward. Uh, but we lost Travion, we lost Pryor, we lost obviously Melton last year. JSN, we tried to push him back too soon. Denzel was out there playing injured and probably shouldn't have been at times. I think that a big part of the success of this defense is not only going to be, everybody being healthy, but everybody staying healthy and not trying to push too hard too fast. Because I think that got us into a lot of trouble last season.
Yeah, it did, and um, it's hard it's hard to put people in positions of significance who, number one, don't have a lot of experience, and number two, um, you don't have the full confidence in.
Yeah.
And so that I think is a big part of what this spring is for this defense, Chris,
Yes, it
is
is.
getting those reps, getting that experience, gaining that confidence from some of these guys, so that if and when injuries come, and they will come, the next guy who steps in is ready to go. You know my feelings on this. I'm not going to hold back. I cannot stand the next
Next
man
man
up.
up.
I
Yeah.
hate that because the next guy up might not be nearly as good as the guy who just got hurt. So don't give me that crap. Next man up. If the next man up is 2 or 3 steps behind the guy who just got hurt, you're going to feel it. Bryson Shaw, anybody?
Oh wow, that's
And
you had to go
I
there, didn't you?
I just heard Aaron from Texas give me a heck yeah from Texas on that one. Speaking
Yeah,
of Aaron, I got that question last week. We will address that here in just a little bit, so hang around for that. But let's continue our discussion here, Chris.
yeah,
We need to flip the script from defense to offense here. Let's talk about offense here for just a minute, if that's okay.
sure.
The quarterback battle. It sounds like to me Kyle McCord is ahead in this thing.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I think it's amazing that a guy who hasn't even been named a starter yet is a 20-1 odds-on favorite to win the
The
Heisman
Heisman,
Trophy.
right?
That's just a beautiful thing for the gambler in me right there. And I'll tell you what, I think right now you jump on it because I think once he's named the starter, that cuts in half at least. And another thing about that is, I'm sure you heard Ryan Day say it. We don't need Superman out there. We need somebody who's going to do the routine things
Routine, baby.
routinely. That is the guy who's going to win it. And I'll tell you, I think that while I think Devin Brown may have a little more of that spectacular playmaker in him, I think that Kyle McCord is the guy who can go out there and be more consistent for you and do, as Ryan Day said, the routine things routinely. So I feel that yeah, I'm with you. I think that Kyle McCord is probably leading this thing, and I think obviously Ryan Day is not going to tell us anything, but I think it's Kyle's job to lose. I really do.
I do as well. I mean, that one more year on campus, all those extra reps, learning the playbook, the pre chemistry he already had with
Yes,
the very best player on your team. Okay.
best player in college football. I'm going to say it right now, Eric. This guy's the best player in college football.
And I haven't seen the Heisman odds. Is his odds even higher? I wouldn't doubt it.
It wouldn't surprise me one bit. I just caught the quarterback odds today. I haven't caught the whole updated leaderboard on that, but you know what? He's got to be up there. He
Yeah.
has to be. But we're talking about the offensive side of the ball. We're talking a little bit about the receiver room. Hey, have you heard the buzz surrounding a young freshman receiver by
Oh,
the name of Noah
Noah
Rogers?
Rogers.
He
There's a
is
lot of
impressing,
buzz, man. A
and
lot of buzz.
Heartline is loving on this guy right now. I mean that is amazing to me. Not only that, but hearing some good things coming out about Jelani Thurman as well. So there's a lot of excitement about some young offensive talent there. But yeah, Noah Rogers, this guy, everything I've heard says this guy is going to find some way to get on the field at least a little bit this season.
All right. It's time for Eric and Chris to make a bet. First freshman to lose his black stripe. I will let you choose one. I get to pick the field. If I win, I get a free box of what's left over from the Girl Scout cookies.
Fair
If
enough.
you win, I'll give you $5. I'll give you $10 for one box of Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, all right.
There we go. So I'll let you pick the player who will be the first freshman to lose his black stripe. If you guess right, $10 coming your way. I get one box of Girl Scout cookies. if I get the field, and I get a free box. Who you going with?
Man, that's tough. Gut instinct makes me want to take somebody who's not even in camp yet.
Ooh,
But
that's probably not wise.
that's not a good choice. So I'm gonna go with Noah Rogers.
I
I think
figured
this
you would.
kid. I think that the way Heartline is raving about this kid, uh, I think that he has not only the physical tools on the field. I think he's probably got the football IQ and the personality to be a impact player on the team this season. Whether it's on special teams, whether it's getting some time at receiver, whether it's mop up duty or working his way in, I think this kid is probably the odds-on favorite.
All right, let's stay on offense, and we go from a freshman to someone who I think's 24 years old or something like that. Xavier Johnson,
I love this
former
kid.
former walk on. Uh, Man, the kid had an amazing game in the Peach Bowl. This is from newly crowned offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach Brian Hartline. He says Xavier's awesome. The growth he has had over the past 12 to 18 months has been awesome. He is a true offensive weapon, from his ability to be an elite receiver to going into the backfield and carrying the ball. Um, it sounds like Hartline is really, really high on Mr. Xavier Johnson. I think this kid's going to get more playing time, and hear me out, Chris. I think he might have a better chance of being the third string wide receiver over Julian Fleming.
I'm not so sure you're wrong.
No?
I'm not so sure you're wrong. This kid, I think that he has shown great growth. He's shown the willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team win. And he's such a dynamic weapon. You can do so many things with this kid. I wouldn't be surprised to see the kid take a snap every now and then. Um, but
Right?
yeah, maybe he'll line up in the defensive backfield from time to time. Who knows? This guy's going to do whatever it takes to get his playing time. I could see him sliding in there at the number 3, mainly because he's proven his not only his worth as far as what he can do, but his durability. There is a consistency there that shows me that, and I place a lot of credence in what Brian Hartline says. This is a guy that's done nothing since he got there but pump out first round draft picks. So if he's willing to make that statement, maybe he's willing to make a commitment to Xavier Johnson and say, "Hey, you may not be a first round pick, but I'm going to get you into the top 3." Yeah,
You
who
know,
knows?
I mean, his versatility
Yeah,
is what makes him very valuable. You saw that. I mean,
yeah.
when we had no running backs left, dude was
He
running
was
the
a pretty good
football.
running back.
Yeah. I mean, and right now you want to talk about a room that's loaded. That running back room is all of a sudden loaded, especially when you throw the fact that if what happens last year happens again, and you need a Xavier Johnson, he can do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got two bona fide NFL draft pick running backs. You have one coming off of injury. You had a freshman last year who flashed. You had a linebacker who went back to a running back who looked pretty good in the Michigan game, and then you had
beast.
Xavier Johnson. I mean, that is a loaded room, Chris. Absolutely
It
loaded.
it really is, and obviously, Eric, with the way things are in college football now, I think the odds of us having all of those guys at the start of the season is probably a long shot, to say the least.
Yes, it probably
Um,
is.
and I kind of feel the same way about the receiver room, and that's why I think that Xavier Johnson is so important.
Yes. So, Chris, let me ask you this. Is there any other news that has come out of camp that you want to touch on? We kind of hinted at this a little bit early in before we started recording. Do you want to go there real fast?
Yeah, I gotta say it.
Okay.
Why? Why, when you have the best player in college football, are you even considering lining him up to return punts. Yes, I know he is dynamic. He is phenomenal. He is everything he was advertised to be coming in. But did we learn nothing from last year? I think we have to protect these guys that are like that. I'm not saying, you don't get him as reps. Obviously, I don't think we're going to see more than a series out of him at best at the spring game. I don't even think we see that, to be honest.
Probably
But
not.
we're not going to see much of him at the spring game. Why do you have this guy messing around back there on special teams, which is just asking for injury? I don't get it.
Well, first off, it's just practice, okay? Second off, Brian Hartline laughed at the media when they jumped all over seeing him field punts. Third, Brian Hartline said it's because the kid absolutely is a workaholic. He will do more than anybody else on this team. He's the first one there, the last one to leave. And if the jugs machine's not up, he's going to jump up and field punts because he's got to work on his hands. Okay, the kid is a treasure, and we as Buckeye
Absolutely.
Nation, we should feel lucky to have Marvin Harrison Jr. on this team. I don't think he's going to be returning punts unless we are behind and we need something electric to happen. Then you put your best player back there. But did we not use Ted Ginn Jr. this way?
We did. Um,
And before you say this is why we didn't win a national championship because he got hurt, he did not
well,
get hurt returning that punt. He got hurt by celebrating after that.
yeah, no, he got hurt because he was cheap shotted by a little weasel from Georgia. Let's call it what it was. That's why he got hurt. But the fact is, I think you have to protect him just at all costs, especially during spring ball.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get injured in a game that was, let's call it what it was. The national title game didn't take place, with TCU. The national title game took place in the Peach Bowl.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
TCU wasn't going to go out there and play with either of those teams, and you don't risk somebody when it's not big stakes like that. Not somebody of that caliber. You just don't do it.
Yeah. A couple quick comments here before we go to commercial break. And James is with us, so we're going to have we'll bring him on here in just a minute. So get your questions ready for the two-time sacker of the quarterback, greatest. Some people call him the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't like giving people up north that kind of credit, but we'll sure to get that story in here. But Brad Olberding says Fleming is his dark horse this year. That's hey, anything can happen.
He could be that slot
healthy?
guy. Yeah, if
Can he
he
stay
stays
healthy?
healthy, he could be that slot.
And I think this is Matthew Butcher probably. He says, "Hey fellas, how's things? James Cotton, is he the fellow we met near the food vendors at the stadium?"
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and when I know James can hear us and see what's going on. James, this Matt Butcher who made this comment was from Australia, and that was his first Ohio State game. And so he got to meet a couple former Buckeyes, and you were one of them, and that was a lot of fun. That was really cool. So, yes, James was that guy. Yes, he could still run you over. I would not want to be tackled by this man. So
No, absolutely not.
let's take a quick commercial break, everybody. And when we come back, we will bring Mr. Cotton on. So hang tight, everybody. The OHIO podcast is brought to you by Mastermind. Mastermind specializes in 360-degree high-definition mobile video mapping, GIS integration, and traffic safety studies. Mastermind cares about traffic safety and keeping you safe on the roadway. Visit Mastermind at onlinemastermind.com. All right, everybody, we are back, and there he is, Mr. James Cotton. Welcome to the OHIO podcast, James.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Everybody out there, OH.
IO.
Beautiful,
There we go.
beautiful. Now, before we get started in asking questions and letting you answer everybody's questions here, I first want to thank you, James. You were 3 years ago the first former Buckeye I interviewed when we were just audio only.
I remember
And
that.
you took the time to come on here and talk to us, and that was so great, man. Who would have thought 3 years later, here we are now, and we're on video and we're growing. I really appreciate that, James. Thank you so much, man.
Hey man, I really appreciate you guys having me on, man. I'm glad to be a part of things that's growing and developing, and you guys are crushing it out here, man. So I'm excited. I always chime in from time to time when I can, and you guys got some really great content, especially if you're a Buckeye fan like myself. I mean, I know I played there, but I am also a fan of the younger generation. So
Thank you so much. Hey, we appreciate that. Paul Quinn answered your OH with an IO.
yeah, that's
You
my
might,
guy out of Zanesville.
okay, you know
Yeah.
Paul. Very cool.
Yeah, met him a few times at the Zanesville Mall and took pictures with, I believe it's his sister. But I used to see them frequently when I had a pop up shop at the Zanesville Colony Square Mall out in Zanesville. So all of my Zanesville Ohioans, we're actually doing a football camp out there this summertime. So you guys stay tuned to that.
Very good. Ryan Wickerham, you probably know him and his famous tailgate. He said, "What up, James?" So you might know Ryan.
Yep, yep. He invited me down to the tailgate, and I was able to stop by. I believe they tailgate in the French Field House parking lot, and
Yep.
so I had a chance to meet his group of guys and take photos and stuff like that. So, when you're a former Buckeye, you know the Buckeye fans. Some people recognize you, some people don't. But it's like a core group of Buckeye diehard fans that whenever they see me, always try and take a photo or answer questions or share my experiences with the Buckeyes. It don't do me no good to take it to my grave. So I like to share as much as I possibly can.
That's great. James, can you still put a hurting on somebody? I mean, you can still play,
Yeah.
right?
I wish, man.
Oh,
That
come on, man.
my knees say
You're being so
otherwise.
humble right now, dude. Have you ran a 40 in a while?
No, no, no.
No, don't
I
worry
wish
about
I could,
don't
but
worry about those knees, James. You can just we'll put you in the jack position so you can be up.
There you go. Stand up
no,
me
I
in,
feel
baby.
like there's like I get that question all the time, man. You look like you can still play. I say I could probably give you a good series, and then that would be it. I would be tapping out.
I could give you one block. That's about it. And then someone have to cart me off the field. But I'll give you one block. Larry Daniels, our buddy Larry Daniels, I think he's down in Florida right now. He's from Ohio. He said he starts off the questioning for you, James, with how did you get recruited and how your career started as a Buckeye. Now, this is an interesting story because you kind of came to Ohio State a little bit of a different path than most high schoolers do.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's great because I'm actually getting ready to put some YouTube content out there. I might even grab a couple snippets here, but
Cool.
my first opportunity, like when I was in high school, Ohio State recruited me heavily, and so this was 1994. 1994, Ohio had the best talent ever that came to Ohio State. Probably you had Pepe Pearson, Orlando Pace. I played against both of those guys in high school, and so me, unfortunately, I tore my ACL my senior year in high school, and so kind of like my Ohio State scholarship and all my scholarships went out the window. And I went to a junior college. I went to City College of San Francisco, and so I went all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, to San Francisco City College, and was a team captain for 2 years out there. If you guys don't know about City College of San Francisco, our most infamous alumni is O.J. Simpson. uh, but a guy that I played with actually broke his rushing record out there when we played in the national championship in community college. But Bill Conley came out to City College and was like, "Hey, man, we gonna honor our word. You know, we got a scholarship available for you. We want to bring you back home to Columbus, Ohio." And we've actually had a couple guys that made it to Ohio State from my community college, a guy by the name of Paul Breed, and then Larry Grant, who played for the 49ers for some years and played in the Super Bowl with Ted Ginn Jr. And so he's coaching college football now, and we keep in contact because I kind of paved the way for him to get to Ohio State. And when he was here, I had the opportunity to mentor him and hang out with him and just, show him around Buckeye Nation.
That's great. So you you get here to Columbus, and you were recruited by Coop. He's still here. You were a part of one of the I think it was one of Cooper's, if not Cooper's, best team he ever had.
Yeah.
Good enough to win the national championship, kind of like last couple teams Ryan Day's had. I mean, just something happened, and didn't get the job done. But man, that '98 team,
Yep.
you guys were studs.
It was. I tell people, that was arguably the best team in Ohio State's history, and I was like, if you guys don't believe me, you guys ask Chris Spielman. He said it on 97.1 The Fan, and and a lot of people remember the guys from that team: David Boston, D. Miller, Michael Wiley, Joe Montgomery, Antoine Winfield, Damon Moore. Ryan Pickett, Nate Clemens. We had some studs, and we had a bunch of young guys too. And I was just kind of like a rotational guy, playing defensive end. I'm still the fastest defensive end to ever play football at Ohio State, at the Ohio State University. But it was just like that team was just like so talent overwhelming, just like it was just we were beating teams so bad, and we had the one slip up against Nick Saban and the Spartans in 1998, Plexico Burrs, and it was just like one of those eerie moments. I get the opportunity to obviously talk to fans all the time, and everybody remembers that game. I tell people I'll never forget the game because it happened on my birthday, November the 7th,
Oh,
and it was just like those lucky numbers 11-7, and we couldn't overcome the sudden change. Like what happened, we dominated all of the teams, and then when we faced a little bit of adversity, we really didn't know how to stop that momentum from Michigan State, and it was just like a weird chain of football events that happened in the game. The ball bounced off of Nate Clements' back on the punt return. They recovered it for a touchdown, and then Joe Germain never really ran, and he tried to escape out of the packet. Robert Smith stripped him, caused fumble, they get the ball, and then it was just like all of this stuff, and then our backs was against the wall, and we couldn't come up with a play at the end of the game, and we succumbed to them. But this was the first year of the BCS, and they took the top two teams, which was Florida State and Tennessee, and I feel like hands down we would have beat both of those teams if we played them.
So you heard it here. If it would have been the CFP and there would have been 4 teams, we would have been in. James Cotton's telling you we would have won.
For sure.
I believe that. Make sure you're writing all your questions. Chris, you get ready with the next question. Make sure you're writing your questions in the comments below. Thank you, Larry, for asking the question. We want to make sure that we give you all who are watching, and we got quite a few watching. We appreciate all of you. We want to make sure we give all of you the opportunity to ask James a question here. So, Chris, what's your question?
I'm going to lob in the softball, Eric. I'm going to lob in the softball. What is your best memory as a player at Ohio State?
My best memory would be chasing down a running back from Penn State. He was quote unquote the fastest guy on the team. If you guys go to my YouTube channel and check out the YouTube channel, I think that highlight is up there. Probably the only place you can find it just because it's so old. But the fact that I didn't give up on the play, and I gave him a head start of about 10, 15 yards and was able to track him down. And then we actually ended up, that guy's name was Eric McCoo, and we actually ended up being teammates for the Berlin Thunder. I had got allocated to play for the Berlin Thunder when I was playing professional football. And we had to get up and say where we was from, like during the initial team meeting. And so when I stood up, I was like, I'm James Cotton from the Ohio State University. And I was like, Eric McCoo know who I am. Everybody just busted out laughing on the team.
Oh, I'll tell you, that's honestly not the one I thought was coming.
Hey,
I thought
I've seen
a certain memory from the big house.
I've seen this video clip.
That one would have been, that's like my most profound moment, but like just favorite memory, but like moment, and just kind of like solidifying my name in Ohio State's history is obviously being the last player to sack Tom Brady 2 times in the big house. So
there
That's
you
awesome.
go. Hey, I've seen the video clip that you're talking about in the Penn State game, and I don't remember who the color commentator was, but they're like, he got chased down. by James Cotton, the defensive end. He's like all surprised that she like ran him down. But yeah, here's a question from Ryan Wickerham. He says, Who was your best assistant coach at The Ohio State University?
I would say I had two. All of the coaches were great, but if I had to say who was the best, I would say, and it's funny because I was just at the Home and Garden show 3 weeks ago, and I was like talking to some people that was like Buckeye fans, and this guy's just like waiting, and I just so happened to look over, and it was Coach Jim Haycock. And so, like, whenever he sees me out, he still lives here in town. He was the defensive line coach. He was the defensive tackle coach when I was there. And I had a specific defensive end coach, but he coached the defensive tackles primarily. And I used to get kicked out of the defensive end meeting room all the time. So I would go and sit in his room. He would allow me to sit in his room after I didn't really get along with my position coach for whatever reason. And it was probably one of the reasons why I didn't start like a game at Ohio State until the sixth game of the season when I was like leading the defensive line and tackles for loss. And it was just like, dude, like my talent and effort speaks for itself. And it was just unfortunate that my coach didn't really see eye to eye, with my mentality. But, I'm not no ass kisser, so.
There you go. Hey, this is from YouTube. It's not a question, but a comment. Hummus Hero says James was a heck of a player. So, Hummus Hero, whoever that is, they agree that you were a heck of a player. Larry Daniels chimes back in with another good question here for you, James. Who gave the best halftime motivation speech during your time with the Bucks or as a pro?
All right, yeah. So this is a fun story. So we all know Ohio University. We played them in 1999, and then I think they actually played the Buckeyes close again. What was that one? The Bobcat Rufus tackled Brutus or something like that.
Yeah.
A few years later, but we was playing Ohio University in '99, and up until Luke Fickell took over and went 7-6, like I was on the last team that Ohio State really struggled in the season. So I was glad Luke had this. Not really glad he had that season, but it got the monkey off of our back and people talking about us. But it was 10-10 going into halftime against OU. So we go into the locker room and, coaches was like, oh, yeah, come on in, come on in, come on in. And then it was like literally as soon as the last player got into the locker room, Coach Fred Pegich played football at Ohio State, defensive coordinator for Ohio State at that time, and went on to win the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos here a few years back. As soon as the door shut, he punched a hole into the chalkboard. His finger was bleeding. He broke his knuckle finger, and he chewed tobacco, so he had tobacco, and he was just salivating, and he was like, "That's effing Ohio University. You better get your together, or I'm gonna." And I mean, it was just. And then it was like after that, it was like, okay, I think we beat them 42-10. So they didn't score another touchdown. And it's so funny. I see him. I do a lot of stuff in the community, so I bumped into him and his wife. And his wife, I didn't recognize him because I hadn't seen him in years. I'm talking probably 15 years. And so he had like a bald head now and just looks a lot older. And his wife was like, "Excuse me, he wants to know if he could get a picture with you naked." And I was like, "What?" And so I looked, and he was like, "Get over here, numbnuts!" And we just hugged and embraced. But it was just like that's just the kind of person he was. But he was an excellent motivator and just like real very smart when it came to on the field schemes and putting us in the right position. And so he gave the greatest motivational speech like that Ohio University game. But then when it was beat that team up North week, especially in '98, he had a real good pregame speech for that game as well.
Question from Paul Quinn. He says, "What advice would you give to a high school upperclassman who is being recruited to a big time college that would help him decide where to go?" Interesting question, Paul.
Yeah, great question, Paul. And for the high school upperclassman, I would say I would assume that he's getting recruited for football, whether it's basketball or any sports. I would look at that as an opportunity to see what is the best educational program that I'm going to be able to associate myself with. What does the alumni association going to do or help me do if I was to come here, and once I graduate, what opportunities lie there? I'm so futuristic with the thinking nowadays, because I think a lot of the young athletes today think of kind of like in the moment, but it's like that moment is going to expire at some point. And so you want to make sure you're putting yourself in the position to either someone could help you start a business, create your own business, or you have an opportunity to do whatever your passion is, or if you wanted to get into sales, or if you wanted to get into engineering, if you wanted to get into becoming a doctor or a lawyer, like what do those specific schools have to offer you from that standpoint? Because sports is just a very small part of your whole life that you're going to be living after being on campus and things like that. So you want to make sure you put yourself in an environment that's going to be, for one, spiritually motivating, physically, mentally. You want to put yourself in those positions to be able to encapsulate all of those things, and hopefully that program can offer you a sense of comfort when it comes to, the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the spiritual aspect. Because when you're growing and becoming a young man, that or a young lady, that's what you're going to be more known for, is like how did this person uh, become who they are today, so to speak. And so football has allowed me to transition into what I'm doing today as far as speaking with schools and churches, the businesses that I've created, and the individuals and the former players that I've been able to help transition. Like that's more of the thing. Like football is the thing that's going to help you enhance all of the life skills that it's going to take to be a great human being.
It's a great time probably to transition into Buckeye Con. But before I ask that question of Buckeye Con and what that is and what you're doing, so you can share that with everybody. Paul Quinn said thank you. He said I never thought of that. So thank you, Paul, for thanking him for answering your question. Last time we talked, James, before we get into Buckeye Con, we talked about NIL and what you would like to see. A lot has changed in 3 years, my friend. I mean, this game looks completely, and by a game, I mean outside of the lines for these college athletes, looks completely different than it did 3 years ago when you and I were talking about some of these things. As a former player and as someone who advocates for life after football for these athletes, and you've been doing this for a while, what are your current thoughts on the current situation with NIL, and where do you think this is going as somebody who talks to these guys post their football career at Ohio State?
Well, I appreciate that question. I have been around like name, image, and likeness. The only way you could get anything from me is you're gonna have to get it from me. So I don't have, there isn't a whole bunch of like autographs or stuff like that floating around of me unless you got it from me personally. And but I try and encourage guys to take their name, image, and likeness, and treat it as intellectual property, because that's basically what you are. You're your own business, and so you have to be able to figure out how to monetize that and put yourself in positions with endorsements, and speaking engagements and opportunities just to be out and into the public. And I always encourage people to attach themselves with a nonprofit organization that's doing good things in the community, because it's a win-win situation. That organization gets notoriety, and then you yourself, you get the notoriety for just being a solid human being. And so, with the landscape on how it's changing college football, is when you have these companies that's offering these guys an absorbent amount of money when they haven't even taken a snap. And like that in itself is like, you know, what do you do to combat that? Is just like, honestly, you really can't. Like, most kids that come from a broken home or a non-structured environment, they're going to have, you know, they're going to be trying to get rich fast, and we all know how those stories always end up, right? So when you try and basically not put yourself in a position, what I just elaborated on making sure that, you know, where you're going is going to be beneficial to you, and it's going to help you not only sustain a lifestyle, you know, while you're playing football, but like further down the line. So it's like this quick money could do you justice, but if you don't know how to manage money, if you don't know how to invest money, and you don't understand financial literacy, then you're gonna end up broke, just like these NFL players or, you know, athletes. Everybody's seen the documentary Broke, and you know, when you have guys that don't know how to manage money, you're talking about guys that made millions of dollars versus, you know, an 18-year-old now thrust in the same limelight making six figures or whatever it is. It's just a recipe for disaster, basically, because these kids aren't getting the proper financial literacy or education when it comes to managing money. And so like that has to be put in place. But it's like, you know, a lot of people are afraid of losing out on recruits. If you lose a recruit because of money, it probably wasn't a good recruit for you to have. Like, especially if you're talking about Ohio State. I'm talking about Ohio State. And if they going somewhere else like Alabama or University of Miami, and it's for the money, then I feel like our brand is strong enough to recruit and get the guys that we need to win championships here. And it's just like, you just got to have faith and belief in the system that we've created. What we, you know, Ohio State is Ohio State. It ain't going nowhere, and it's going to be prominent for a long time. Now, whether guys believe they can come in and help out and contribute to that, like that is going to be kind of like the selling point. Like, we need you, and then they should in turn realize that, oh my God, Ohio State's put out 6 first rounders in, the last 2 years, and it's just like what they're doing on that next level. It's like, and that's if they're into that, then you sell them on that. But again, it comes to recruiting. We got the best recruiters. I feel like we got the best coaches in the country that's going to make sure that Ohio State maintains a certain level of not only just integrity, but just level of play to where our fan base is going to be excited with the product that they see on Saturdays.
Quick follow-up question to that from Ryan Wickerham. He says, should there be a cap on the NIL, James?
So, I mean, you really necessarily can't cap it, because if you got a company that wants to give, for instance, a CJ Stroud $2 million or $3 million, like, the university can't cap it. It is just like, so now that they've created this behemoth, you can't necessarily cap something that isn't within like a union or a structured environment. So you got like the NFL that has a salary cap. You see guys getting cut, the last week now because you making too much money. So guess what? You gotta, take your services elsewhere. And so it's like, okay, so if that happens, like if you put a cap in place, and let's just say this person that's on a year scholarship isn't living up to his abilities, like, do you kick him off the team at that point? And so it's just like, it's a catch 22. So I don't think necessarily there's a structure to cap the the NIL deals. I think they should monitor them and put some type of, and a lot of colleges do have this in place. Ohio State has it in place a little bit with the foundation and things that they're trying to do, but just like more so educating and putting guys in positions to make some money. Not everybody's going to make $1 million. Not everybody's going to make 6 figures, but you just got to put things in perspective and just be very understanding of like what's really happening, and just really they just got to monitor the situation and where they can make changes and implement changes or help guys out and put them in the right direction. Then they just got to use the resources to do it.
James, you do a lot of really good work through your personal business and organization. I love following you on social media. I love seeing pictures of you standing in front of classrooms full of kids, and they all have the same look that Chris and I have when we see you. Like, he's superhuman. Tell everybody about Buck Icon and what you're doing and how they can follow you out there.
Yeah, so Buck Icon is a company that's been around, I would say, since I retired from professional football back in 2008 or 9. And I like to use the acronym being, understanding, courteous, kind, initiating community outreach nonstop. And so that's kind of like what Buck Icon means as an acronym. And so I help former athletes transition into life after sports. Over the past decade, man, I've helped guys that transition from just Ohio State and transition back into the community. I had guys that transition from the NFL back into the community, help guys start businesses. And it's just like, for me, I don't look for any pats on the back. I just, hey, God called me to serve this demographic of guys, and I don't name drop all of the guys that I've helped out. Some guys' situations were a lot worse than others. And so that's just kind of like a private thing that I respect everybody's confidentiality. And but for me to be able to be a resource for guys, because I know what it's like to struggle with the transition where you don't have an itinerary to get you through your days. And that's kind of like what you've been accustomed to being under, is just like a guided environment, a monitored environment. So now when you're on your own, and the most difficult thing is guys not realizing that their careers are over, they're never going to play football again. And that's kind of like the love of your life. So if you ever been dumped by a girlfriend, or if you ever lost a loved one, it's pretty much dead. You got to have a burial for it. You got to have a funeral for it. You got to celebrate it. You got to do all of those things. And I don't think a lot of guys are emotionally stable to go through those and process those emotions. And so I kind of try and walk those guys through what I've been through, and just share my story with guys and try and get them to turn to positive environments and putting themselves in positive situations, being around positive peoples. And for me at that time, it was just kids, and being a part of kids, helping kids, children, and teens through the grieving process. That was like one of my first deals when I got done playing football. I was a volunteer at a grief program, and I just connected with the kids, and it was like, hey, you do such a good job with the kids. Why don't you become a staff member? So I got certified. I became a grief counselor with the Ohio State Medical Center. And that was like my first opportunity to create programs and be around programs that was serving people, helping families through the grieving process, pre and post death. And so it was like I had to go to funerals and things like that. And it was just a great experience for me that taught me so much, and understanding the 5 stages of grief. And I was like, wow, this is so correlated to our football careers. We lose our football careers, and we don't know how to celebrate them. We don't know how to grieve about them. And so I've been able to share that with guys. And so with that, all of the guys that help me out, we do free football camps for kids with special needs and underprivileged youth throughout the state of Ohio. And so if you guys would like to help out, go to www.buckicon.com. You'll see a donation link on the page. Make a donation. Anything you could do, $5, $10, $20, whatever is on your heart and on your spirit that you would like to give back. But these are free camps taught by myself, ran by myself, and with the help of Ohio State and NFL players that graciously come out and donate their time. And then we also have where you could join the team. You click on join the team on the same website. You'll get information. I do online coaching. I have online courses. I have an ebook. And all it is helping teach everyday individuals, not just athletes, but everyday individuals. We all transition into something, right? I just so happen to transition from football, transition from sports, but there's phases that you go through. And so you have an opportunity to join the team. I'll get you out information where you could go through my online course and you can get taught by me, meet with me once or twice a month, whatever it needs to be done for you to transition and have a positive outcome with your transition, where it's going to give you some mental balance, it's going to give you spiritual balance, and then we're going to throw some physical fitness balance in there. As you can see, I haven't lost my physical physique either, so I try and help everyday individuals just transition from that standpoint.
No, you definitely have not lost any of that muscle mass, my man. If anything, I think you've gotten bigger somehow. But hey, it's been a lot of fun. Give that website out again to everybody so they know exactly where to go, James. And please, I wanna encourage everybody to make a donation. I'll be making a donation this week myself. And appreciation, James, of you coming on here on the OHIO podcast. Where can we find you again? Where can we go? And where can we make that donation at?
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's an absolute pleasure to see some people that I haven't talked to and seen, and I see all the time. And so it's great to be able to answer questions for Buckeye Nation. But where you guys could go and help contribute to our free football camp for children with autism, Down syndrome, and cerebral palsy that we do absolutely free for them to attend. It is www.buck, BUCKICON. That's buckicon.com. And you'll see a big yellow donation tab on there. You click on it, you help out, and then if you want to meet with me, get some, if you're going through like a tough transition, whether it's grief, you're an empty nester, or you transitioning from job to job, you kind of like in limbo, I could definitely help you get through that process as well. All you got to do is join the team. There's a tab on the website for that as well. But I truly wish the best for everybody out there. Spring games coming up, so we'll get to taste some football. But right now, I'm getting ready to go fill out my brackets and see if I can
Go win you some money, James.
Right.
Well, we don't have to worry about being homers this year. So
Right. I know. Oh.
Hey,
James,
I thought.
Right, James. We want to invite you. If you don't have a tailgate already, we are going to have a tailgate for the spring game right outside the northwest corner of the shoe. We get there super early, set up right outside the horseshoe northwest corner. Invite all of our listeners and those folks to come and have a big celebration of Ohio State football on the OHIO podcast. James, thank you so much again for coming on. We really do appreciate. We're gonna have to have you back on, man, because there's just so many more questions I could have asked that we didn't get into. But please, everybody out there, go to Buck Icon, his website there. Hit that donate button, drop some dimes there for them to help some kids. My wife works with children with autism, and these kids are, I don't want to use the word special because I know that, yes, that's the term that everybody uses for them, but these kids want to live a full life just like you and I, and they just need a little bit of help. That's all. And James, thank you so much, man, for being willing to help children like that, and for being willing to come on the show tonight, man, because Lord knows Chris and I need help too. So
Absolutely, man. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. Anything I could do to help out, man, I'm going to definitely try and stop by the tailgate. I'll be down there just walking around, passing out flyers, just trying to get the word around. So I'll definitely stop by, take pictures if you guys got fans that want to get pictures. I'm not that photogenic, but I'll try.
You're a whole lot better off than we are, James.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to feel bad about your muscle mass, get a picture next to James. I mean,
yeah.
All right, guys, that's our show for tonight. We appreciate each and every single one of you stopping. Yes, Chris, go for it.
We did not give away a set of tickets tonight.
Oh my! I tell you what. Here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a question on Facebook this week about this interview. and the first person who watches this and can answer that question will win a free pair of tickets to spring game. How about
Love
that?
it.
I like
Love
it.
it.
There we go, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming in. We really appreciate that. As always, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH and sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. And until next time, OH!
Ayo.
Oh!
Go Bucks!